importance of this once we're done.
Yes.
Mike Tafuni is an excellent appraiser. He owns and is the principal person in NJT Appraisals. He is a friend of the company. Many times he's received calls from many of you asking, what about this? And how much does this add? And what do we have to do? Now, I'm gonna let Mike take it from there because as we mentioned Tuesday, we've seen a market like we've never seen, myself, in 37 years, and Mike's going to have great input. He's gonna speak a little bit, but he's more interested in the questions that you have, and I know many of you brought questions. There are, everybody knows everybody here except for Jeannie Donato in the pink and white shirt, manages Remax First Choice and Second Sana for Bernie and Patty, and I talked to her about this, and she's joining us, as is Mary, who also works out of that office, so welcome.
Hey, I know a lot of you guys.
Smiley face.
Okay, well, thanks for coming. And, some of you have been here before and know me from prior, I guess, meetings. My name is Michael Tafuni. I've been an appraiser. I started in 1993, and our training program probably is a lot different than what the agents go through. We had at that time a 2-year minimum as a trainee, so I had to work under someone's license for 2 years. I think the hours accumulated had to be 2,500 hours, encompassing all different types of appraisals. Could not be done in less than 2 years, and then you just sit for the state test. So I got licensed as a state appraiser in 1995. I became certified in 2005. And certification is sort of like a broker in your business. It gives me full reign to do any type of appraisal, residential, regardless of the value. A residential appraiser is capped at $1 million. I can do, in fact, I just did a $4 million property up in Bergen County. I don't like doing the big ones, but it comes with the territory. My area, geographic, I go from the Hudson River to the Delaware. I used to go way up to like Port Jervis or Montague. I don't go that far anymore. And then maybe Somerset County is as far south as I go. I don't do Mercer. When I first started out, I used to do a lot of Warren. I did a lot of Somerset, a lot of Sussex, I want to say Montague, so I'm pretty familiar with those areas. Now my business, probably half of it is in Bergen County. After the crash in 05, 06, 07, I got into doing work in Bergen because a lot of my clients were asking me to go to Bergen. I'm like, no, I'm pretty much Mars, and I expanded, so now I do co-ops on the Hudson, and I do these $1 million properties up in Franklin Lakes and Saddle River. It's opened to a whole new market for me. It's totally different, it's all new construction up there, whereas down here, I don't see as much as I do up there. Like I said, I've done everything from a 1-bedroom or studio co-op to a 15, 20-room mansion in Franklin Lakes or Saddle River, so there's not much that I haven't seen. I probably appraised, I'm guessing 7,000 to 8,000 properties in my 20-something years. Just this week alone, I've done 15, so with this crazy market.
This week?
This week, and I got 5 tomorrow. So I'll be working all weekend again, but that's okay. There's always time to rest. So I guess with that, I'll let you guys ask the questions. I don't have an agenda.
You have your first question from Carol right there.
All right. Question is, I have an inspection on Wednesday. Can you ask Mike Tafuni, how much does an indoor pool? How much does an indoor pool and do? I don't understand.
I think it's
I have a
add to
home
an
that
appraiser.
we come in the market. I've only seen a handful in my 20-something years. In fact, I just did one in Parsippany. And you have to understand, and I'm sorry, your first name is?
It's Rick.
Rick. The lenders, they want to see a paired transaction or a paired property. So if you have a property that has an indoor pool, they want to see another comp with an indoor pool. Not an outdoor in-ground, but an indoor pool, because they want to see what the market acceptance is. So it's crazy, but the one I did, I think I had to was in Parsippany, I went like to Montville, or I even went over to Mendham. I gave them some listings of some properties with indoor pools, just to satisfy, because they're gonna come back and ask, are there any other properties with indoor pools? Is this the only one in Morris County? No, there are other ones. These properties are not similar, they're not comparable, but here, yes, there is an indoor pool, so to answer the question, she should show whoever she's doing this for, she should have some other properties with at least one indoor pool, just to be prepared in case someone comes back and asks.
I have a question.
Yes.
If you're looking for comps and you're having a hard time finding, let's say you need a 3-bedroom comp.
Right.
And all what you find is 4 bedrooms. How much of an adjustment will you give for a 3 to 4? Like how much of an adjustment do you give for bedrooms and
All
a
right.
finished basement?
You can get this information on Garden State MLS. You can run statistics on 1-bedroom, 2-bedroom, 3-bedroom, and 4-bedroom homes. And it's probably a good thing to look at the variance between the two. Honestly, in my opinion, 3 and 4, I don't treat them any differently, but 2 I do. So to answer your question, don't use all 4 bedrooms if you have a 3-bedroom home that you're trying to do a CMA on. You have to at least have 1 3-bedroom. Listen, we're never gonna find similar, never, I mean, that's the market, unless you're in a condo development and they're all the same units, and you have all the pair transactions that you need. This market's so unique and different that, you know, so I don't, to answer your question, I don't, normally, and I'm gonna say normally, I wouldn't make an adjustment between a 4 and a 3, unless, you know, I could see something that warranted it.
Right.
But are you normal as far as other appraisers, like are?
See, that's a good question, because someone asked me, I met an agent, I forget where it was, and she said to me, you guys all work off the same book. I said, no, we don't. There is no handbook for appraisers. We take our classes, we get a lot of this stuff how we handle appraisals is based on experience. And the market kind of dictates where the adjustments might go, because I'll give you a perfect example. When I first started out in 1993, a half bathroom was adjusted at $2,000. A full bathroom maybe $5,000. You can't use those numbers today, and some people do. They never changed with the times. You know, I'm not using the same adjustments on $1 million property as they would on a $500,000 property. So there's no standard.
So some are tougher than, I mean.
The only thing that we have to do as appraisers, and Fannie Mae has kind of gotten away from this, they want us to limit the adjustments, like 10%. If you make more than 10% adjustment, you have to explain why you're doing that. 10% would be on location. Everybody asks me, location adjustments. Something on a busy road as opposed to something inside a development. Usually we try to make a 10% adjustment when we're doing the one on the busy road compared to the one in the development. Anything more than 10, you have to explain it, and I don't like explaining things because you just get yourself in trouble. You can't get yourself in trouble.
So if you have a 3 to 4, you're saying you don't necessarily need to make
I
an
don't.
adjustment? The 4-bedroom obviously is gonna have a little bit more square footage, so are you adjusting on the square footage side then?
Definitely.
Okay.
I don't make any adjustments for less than 50 square feet in measurement. So if you got a 2,000 square foot house and you got a 2,500 square foot house, you're adjusting to 500 square feet. And depending on the market that we're in, on a lower priced home, it could be, what I do is a rule of thumb. If I'm in a $600,000 home, I usually make my adjustment based on $60 a square foot. $500,000, I do it at 50. $1 million, I do it at 100. Once they get into the high numbers, that extra square footage doesn't really add any value. You know, if you got a 5,000 square foot house and a 7,000 square foot house, I don't care who you are, that space doesn't add all that extra value, in my opinion. It's kind of regressive as far as the adjustment.
Mike, what about older homes, like historic homes? So you adjust for busy road.
Mhm.
So a lot of the older homes are on busy roads. Do you do the same type of adjustment for that?
On an older home, you're saying something that's 100 years old or
Yeah,
older,
yeah.
vintage,
Like,
you have to use vintage age
okay,
comparables. There's no, you just can't compare anything that's 100 years old to something that's 20 years old to 25.
right,
It's
so
just
it wouldn't be
different
necessarily, you wouldn't necessarily take a 10% off for being on a busy road,
I would
because
take, I would
you
do,
would,
I
even with that.
sure.
So you would compare,
Location, you can't change the location.
Compared to-
It's like the functionality of the house. You can't, there's certain things you just can't change. You can't move the house
Right.
off the road. You can't change the slope of the you could,
You could put trees up.
you could, but this house is still close to the road.
Right.
You can't change the slope down
How
or the slope
about,
up.
how about like bedrooms, cause a lot of old homes don't have that.
Have
Bedrooms
closets?
don't have
Yeah.
closets, so,
That's a big
The
one
old-
out here.
I know
Yeah,
that,
can
the
you
old,
clarify these bedrooms
I
with
would
without
go, the old
closets?
way of thinking used to be that if there's no closet, it's not a bedroom. I mean, if you're in a septic situation, you have to make sure that you have enough septic space to handle the bedrooms that you're declaring. Me personally, if it's a room has to be 7 by 10 to be, I guess, declared a bedroom, a legal bedroom. And that's under the ANSI, it's one of these groups that does inspections. 7 by 10 is what they consider a legal sized bedroom. So if you've got an 8 by 10 or a 10 by 10 room, and it's got 2 sets of egress. It's got the door in and it's got a window out. Just because it doesn't have a closet, if it's one of these older homes, I call it a bedroom. Because that's what they use it as. I mean,
Right.
because they didn't, back in the day, they didn't have all these clothes that we have today. Had a suit, work pants and a pair of shoes and,
The people
Yeah.
are smaller too, cause
They're
they're much
small.
narrower, the suits.
yeah, but there's nothing to stop somebody from getting something from IKEA
right.
and putting it up on the
Exactly.
wall and calling it a closet.
Yeah.
So I call it a bedroom if it's legally, meets the safety.
Right.
It's not a railroad room, meaning that you're going from one room into another. Some agents call it, and I'm like, I don't know what, you can't call two, they both can't be bedrooms. Does everybody know what I mean by a railroad room?
Yes.
Yeah.
Go from one to a captured room or whatever. You can only one of them is a bedroom, the other one's a den or an office.
How about basement bedrooms, so-called bedrooms?
Even if they have
Uh,
big windows or walkout stairs.
Basements are not valued or appraised the same way as first floor and second floor living areas. It's just not. Underwriters, reviewers, they don't give it, you know, if you have a walkout basement, yes, it does add some value, and I'm gonna say, depending on the range that we're in, because I'm not making the same adjustments on $1 million walkout as I am on a $250,000 home or back home. You know, it could be $5,000 extra for a walkout, 10 to 15 on a higher end home. And then same thing with the basements. You know, adjustments are all over the place in the basements. I see it. But no one's gonna adjust the basement more than they do the first and second floor living area.
Have you seen having a pool, I know years ago, having a pool sometimes was a detriment to try to sell, and now it seems it's gone complete,
After COVID.
flip-flop on that, and is adding value. Have you adjusted for that now in this?
But you're right,
Yeah.
people wanna stay home with this
Yeah.
COVID, they don't wanna travel. And you're right, I see it a lot over the last year and a half, you know, people putting them in. And I think the values have come up on, what appraisers will give for an in-ground pool. Used to be $5,000, $10,000. You know, me personally, I'm doing $15,000 to $20,000, depending on, you know, what kind of shape it's in. If it's newer, yeah, it's, you know, it costs a lot more than that to put it in.
Yeah.
Probably costs 3 times that much.
Tremendous amount. Then the last one.
Plus, yes.
You see that? Can you see that from here? Just
FHA.
curious. Okay, you got it. I was just using our little toy. I have a home with like 56 years old with sidewalks in the front, and it's the owner's responsibility. Will an FHA rule, and the sidewalk's coming up because the root of the tree is causing it to pull up.
Right.
Will that come up on as a safety issue for an FHA loan?
Everything with FHA is around safety. The old FHA thinking used to be cosmetic. Cosmetic is out like, you know, well,
Sorry.
carpeting, that was all, paint, that was all. Broken windows, sidewalks, peeling paint's the big thing. Anything that's safety related, yes, will
What about cracked paint versus peeling paint?
Depends on the age of the house. If it's built before 1978, it has to be addressed. If it's built, I forget what the cutoff is in 78. 70, but it is 78,
I
but
think
it might
it's
be
July.
June, yeah.
June or
Say
July.
July 1st of 78 and newer, doesn't have to be addressed.
I have an appraiser that gave me a lecture about the peeling paint. The house was built from the ground up in 1990. There's no 1978 here. And he said, no tolerance for peeling paint. Gotta remediate that.
It's not true.
Well, thank you. At least I'm hearing a different opinion.
Because,
He just, we had to fix it.
that number's ingrained in my mind. 78
Yes,
is
of
the,
course.
is the year.
It's in all of our minds.
Where do you have recourse with that? If the appraiser said that,
We fixed it. I thought it was stupid,
I
but
would-
what's
I would
really
call up-
stupid is now I'm saying,
What's it,
no tolerance for peeling paint of
You-
any age.
You know, in today's modern world of technology, you can just Google that and see what, just Google it and pull it up. And you'd be surprised what you could find on the internet with questions. Sometimes other questions come up from homeowners or appraisers. There's a lot of information on there,
But
but,
if the buyer already sees that,
yeah, I mean, with FHA, they're pretty good. If you get into a jam with something, you can call them. I mean, over the years, I've called them when I've had questions, and they're pretty helpful. And they're not gonna give you misinformation, so they're gonna go by the book. And they have a pretty, I mean, that book is pretty thick with all the requirements, and it clearly states 1978. So I don't know what he did.
I once had a property in Netcom, and the train was right behind the house, and the appraiser began saying, we're gonna have to fence that yard before that, and we're having a heart attack, 'cause the fence, there's no way the house wasn't worth what the fence was gonna be to put around this. So we're all freaking out, so basically, there was a discussion, you know, I think what you have to do is get on the phone fast and get a discussion going. With the appraiser's job is not to talk these people out of, make them terrified to live there. So there was no safety issue, the train was far enough away, they didn't have little children, not that that was in anybody's consideration, cause you're not supposed to know who's buying the house, that's not part of it, but I just felt she had way too much power in this. I was getting very nervous, and what is the recourse if you feel the person is maybe trying to make a name for themselves or something? Can we do anything to change that? No. Can I call you and say, please, can you take over this? I can't, but, nothing you can do, but.
I would start with the bank who ordered the appraisal.
Well, that's where, what we all ultimately ended, everybody got, calm, and we just
Because
kinda
if you're not happy
talked to
with,
them, yeah.
you can't call because you're not happy with the value, because.
Well, that was just really a
But if there's
ridiculous
something that's-
request, there was nothing wrong with the yard, or there was nothing dangerous in the yard, there was no, train was just,
You
you're
know,
buying a house, you see the train, the train's there, that was, all that.
Our jobs as appraisers is we're the eyes and ears of the mortgage company. We're not working for the buyers, we're not working for the sellers, as different like you guys are. We're working for the mortgage, for the lender. We're protecting their asset. It is their asset because they're gonna own it if there's a mortgage. So, we just have, as an appraiser, I just tell them what I see. I mean, sometimes if it's a real safety issue, we'll make the appraisal subject to, even if it's a conventional loan. Subject to meaning that this has to be corrected. Same thing would be, dangerous situation. You see 4 or more stairs with no handrail. And you know that if someone comes out of that house and they trip, they're gonna go down because they have nothing to grab onto. You put it in there. And I've had lenders push back on that also, so. They're the ultimate decision makers. We're not, because there's underwriters, reviewers, underwriters. He knows, I mean, there's a lot of people involved in this process. We're just the eyes and ears of the mortgage company, and because the way I was taught, the guy who taught me, who's still in business, he said, whatever you put down on that, that appraisal it's a document, it lasts forever. I'm not sure if it's evergreen. I guess maybe there's a limit on it, but if I didn't see that, if I don't see it, I don't see it. But if I see it and I don't say it, and if somebody, God forbid, comes out of this house and they fall, geez, nobody told me we needed a handrail. You know what they're gonna, in this litigious society that we live in, everybody that's got a name on that thing is gonna get, a letter. And I don't need a lawyer coming after me for something that could just easily be put into report. So, people could say I might be nitpicking or breaking chops. I'm not, I'm really protecting myself, but I'm also protecting the lender. And, occupants, if something's a safety issue, I think everybody would be, regardless of trying to sell something, safety is probably the most important thing.
Mike, I wanna revisit, if you wouldn't mind, just a couple of things, a few we haven't touched on. Regarding the bedrooms, back to this again, as Tammy had brought up, you have a 4-bedroom as opposed to a 3. As long as it is not more than 50 square feet discrepancy, you're really not adjusting,
I'm not adjusting on square footage.
right? Okay. But in
Like
terms.
if I have let's put it this way, if I have a house that I physically measure as 2,000 square feet,
Mhm.
and I've got a comp that I'm using as 2,050. Okay, I'm
Okay.
making a 50 square, but I could be off on my measurement too. I mean, there has to be some, it's never exact. If you look
Right.
at the New Jersey tax records and
Yes.
you pull up the records and you say, hey, this house says it's 2,000 square feet, I come up with 2,300. I've checked my numbers twice. I'll call the tax assessor. And most of these guys are pretty good. This younger group, and I say younger because I'm 64 now, but when I started when I was in my early 30s, the guys were they were my age now, but they had all the information and it wasn't public like it is now. So if you called up, you couldn't get information. They kept that information to themselves. It was like their own,
I know.
it was their own little domain. You wanted it, you almost had to pay for it, or you had to. It was really tough. Now these guys, they know that we're partners in this. Because I do tax appeals too. I mean, I'm going against them in court. So we're all on this, we might be adversaries in court, but we all have the same interest. And I'll ask them for a record card and they give it to you. By law, they're supposed to. Now, they might make you fill out one of those Oprah forms just to give you a little bit of a hard time. But when you get the property record card, many times I can see where the discrepancy is. Somebody measures something that was 2 stories, something that was 1 story because it's vaulted, they put it as 2. Maybe they couldn't get into the house. A lot of times these are college age kids that are going out doing these field inspections. It's not the actual assessor, it's a 20-year-old kid in college for $10 in appraisal. You think he's gonna do all these angles and all this crazy stuff? No, he's gonna look at it, he's gonna run the tape measure, and that's the number. So there's always a lot of discrepancies. You have to get the record card if you think there's a problem, even in your own mind. If you think there's something wrong, ask the assessor for the property record card. Because on there, it'll show you all the permits that were taken out, because he gets records of all that stuff. So that's a pretty good, I guess, guide or source for you guys to use in your trying to put something together for a CMA or you're doing something for a protected client.
How do you measure? You.
I measure with the old-fashioned tape measure.
And then what do you do?
I don't use a roller, I
Right.
don't use a laser, because people say to me, you're not using a laser? No. Because I had a guy with me, and he was he kept calling me, and he said, I'm graduating from Rutgers, and I got this degree and that degree, and I said, okay. He said, I took my classes, I want to become a trainee. And I'm a one-man shop. I don't want to be responsible for anybody. I just want to be responsible for me. I don't want to be chasing people down and having this, because that's just me. I work better by myself. So he came and worked with me for a few weeks. And he said, hey, look, my parents got me this, for a great gift, they got me this laser. I said, that's pretty cool. I said, let's try it out. So I remember we were down like in South Brunswick. And I don't go down that way anymore, but I used to do a little bit further south. And he said, all right. I said, we'll measure the house. I'll take my old-fashioned tape measure, and I'll go around the house, and you take that new laser, and you put that laser on the house, and see what you can come up with. So he's got that thing, and he's hitting the numbers. So I said, when you're done, come back and we'll sit in the car and we'll go over everything. So he comes back and he's got the papers. Man, how'd you come up with that number? See, I hit the number, I hit it there, I hit it there. It picks up objects. It's not gonna pick up the 2 points in the house. In a bedroom it would, because it's corner or side, comes up with a measurement. We were off by a I didn't know what the calculation was. He looked at me, he was almost crying. He said, "Can't believe it." I said, "I'm telling you, these things that's why I'm not gonna use it." And that's an easy example. That was a ranch. And I'm doing contemporaries, split level, forget it. That would throw him into an oblivion. He'd be still there the next day measuring the split level. Some appraisers can't measure. They can't figure out if this is 2 stories or that's 1 story. Hey, where's the basement? They just, I see it, they can't do it. You have to have my father was a draftsman for 40 years, so maybe I picked up something from that. But yeah, people they can't measure. I see it all the time.
Another question, garages, 2-car, 3-car, 4-car, what difference does it make when you're appraising? You have a 4-bedroom colonial in a neighborhood, and one has a 3-car garage, one has a 2-car garage. What difference would that make? And we're looking at it from our standpoint. We're going to go out
All
and
right.
price a house.
I'll tell you how things have evolved. Years ago, garages were not really that big of a deal, but now they are because people have boats. They got classic cars. They might work from home. They have an extra garage. I think it's great. I at least $10,000 per door.
Okay.
Even 15. You know, some are oversized. Some have lofts. And no one's going to push back on that because it's, first of all, if you're permitted to put one in, sometimes people put they have a 2-car garage that's into the house, then they got a separate 2-car garage. If you've got the room and you don't need a variance, and that's great. I mean, it's $20,000. You don't lose money on a garage.
How about heated as opposed to unheated, more value for the heated?
Well, no, because it's not living area. It would have to be a living area, and no one's gonna. You're not gonna. It's not that. The appraisals are not that finite, because people say that. I can't. I'm just gonna give you an example. I wouldn't give any more value for a heated garage.
Okay, because a lot of people count that, oh, it's got a heated garage.
It's just
so
an
you
added,
can-
just an added feature. I don't
Well,
know.
that's a good convenience, right?
Yeah,
To work there in
convenience
the
to work
winter.
out,
Yeah, I mean, it's. I mean, maybe.
The man space.
You know, if you had,
Car.
the only way you can measure any of these things is if you have 2 of the same house that you're comparing, and we just don't have, this market's not like that up here. I mean, I got a friend in Florida, we started out together as appraisers. He's appraising down there, and everything down there is online. The floor plans are online. He is making so much money down there doing it. I'm thinking about going down there, he's making so much money appraising in Florida, because their records are much better than, their public records are much better than ours up here. But all the homes are the same. You go into a tract development, there's 500 homes. They're 2-bedroom or 3-bedroom ranches. Easy. That's when you can have a paired sale. You have 2 homes you're comparing. One might have a 1-car garage, one has a 2-car garage. You can almost see what the buyer will pay based on those 2 homes when you compare them. That's what we call a paired transaction. Never see it up here. It's really,
I have a question.
yes.
So, let's say I have a contemporary, and I'm trying to find comparables for contemporary. At one point, the square footages were so different that I deviated from contemporary style and pulled colonials that had similar square footage. And an appraiser told me that that's what they would do too. Am I correct in saying that?
Well,
Because the contemporaries weren't like for like, even though the style was, but the square footage, everything else was different about it.
contemporary is sort of like its own, I have a contemporary, so, I mean, it's more like a saltbox contemporary, but it's not, it's contemporary. Yeah, in my opinion, you have to at least, you have at least one contemporary
I
in
did,
your.
okay. But then I really based it on square footage.
Yeah, you do it on square footage. I think also, if I'm not mistaken, in Garden State MLS, you can, I think you could put styles in there and come up with.
Yes.
I mean, those statistics are great. I use them all the time to defend an action I might be taking on a value, good or bad. I mean, I would use those statistics all the time. In fact, on there, there's a segment that you might see it. It says MC, Stats MC. That's for the appraisers. If you're in a market, as an example, let's say Washington Township where I live, Mill Valley, and you say you do last June to this June, the it'll show the median price, or the average, I forget what comes up, average or median. Price was, back then it was $450, now it's $500, let's say. Oh, it went up 10%. You can't always use that as a guide, because then you've gotta go to the property that you're doing, to that little segment of the market. You might be in a market where the homes didn't go up in the last 12 months. And I see that a lot. You know, when you drill down into numbers, a $400,000 to $500,000 home might not have gone up 10%, but the overall market did. Does that make sense to everybody?
Yeah.
So we do that on our appraisals, where they ask us for that MC form. They used to use it. Now they don't ask us anymore. I still do it, and I still throw it in there as just an addendum to show them that, yeah, I'm saying that the market's increased because there's no inventory, but the price point that I'm at, there's no proof that the market went up, and here's my proof. That MC form shows that there's no increase, or I take my time adjustments based on that. Yes.
The market's been crazy the last year. People are putting $50,000 over asking price. That's just driving the market prices up. Or is there, I mean, even like how you're appraising them, like if something's like there's 3 things under contract in the same as comparables, and we know they're getting all this above asking price. I just, how could these prices go up $50,000 when you're looking? I just don't even know what I'm saying.
No, I know what you're saying.
But here's the scary thing, we get it.
Yeah, it's like, how can you like go from like, okay, the house was $400,000, now it's $450, 6 months later.
It takes me now twice as long to write an appraisal as it did, say, 2 years ago. It's not that I'm any slower. It's just that I have to digest this information too. Just because someone spends this much money on a house, is it worth it? That's really, that's the $64,000 question. In some instances, I was telling somebody, I'm appraising even higher. I'm coming out, because what we do, we're allowed to do as appraisers, we can make time adjustments.
Yeah.
Does everybody know what a time adjustment? You guys know what it is, right? When I take that MC form that I was talking about, and I could show 6 to 12 months ago the price was $450, and now the last 3 months it's $500. I know we have a 10% adjustment. So if I'm using my comps, I take the date of contract when I'm comparing it to the subject that I'm doing. I take the date of contract for the comparable to the effective date of my appraisal, and we keep things simple. Maybe it's 5% because it was a 6-month time period. I add that 5% to that comp, because that comp would sell for 5% more in today's market. We have to, but the reverse works. I've done negative. I mean, I've done where we had down markets, where I've done homes that have sold 6 months ago wouldn't sell for that today. They would sell for less. So we use the time adjustment on our end to support, but the lenders want us. This is the big thing. The lenders want to see the sale prices bracketed. I think I've spoken about that last time I was in here. Bracketed meaning they want 2 higher and 1 lower. That's the perfect storm is 2 higher, 1 lower. And then you have also under contracts, if you throw actives or under contracts to support the current value. But you have to show higher priced homes, because if you don't, it's not gonna get through review. The reviewers are gonna say, is that the highest priced home in this neighborhood? Well, no. Can you go to another neighborhood that's similar? And you have to go outside your normal zone and come up with another property to show that here's another home similar, but it's a different neighborhood. I didn't use it because I wanted it to stay in the neighborhood. You throw it in there because you know that the value is, because your under contracts are supporting this sale price. And sometimes it doesn't work. I mean, people are just spending more than it's worth, and I don't care what you just can't appraise, and it just comes in where it is.
I just had an appraisal fail in Byram. The appraiser had the nerve to say in the appraisal, there are no recent sales. No recent sales similar to this.
Similar to this.
Well, I'm not even sure he used the word similar. In my opinion, the whole appraisal was a hatchet job, and the deal, we're done. We're back on the market, we'll probably get twice as much.
First of all, I don't like to knock any appraisers, because I'm sure that there's,
Well, I'm not naming
I'm
names.
sure many people have,
I'm not
taken
naming
a look at
names,
mine and
but I
said-
keep that list. An
Well,
experienced woman.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, the same is true with realtors,
Yeah,
because I've got some realtors who will not give you information. And I'm sorry, in this market, if an appraiser calls you and asks you, you're a listing agent on this property, you don't give them the exact number. But if it's, I had one the other day, it was in Boundbrook. And I'm trying to think of what it was. I called the guy up and I said, is that price right? He said, yeah, it sold for $60,000 more. It was a little ranch. Like, no way in my mind could I have ever thought it would. But most agents, if you call them, but there's a few that they just won't give you the information. I don't know what they're holding on to, because it's gonna come back and bite them at some time.
sure.
Because I just say, I spoke to the listing agent, he or she confirms that this was listed at 500, it's selling for 570. It's up around 570, I don't put the exact, because I don't wanna get anybody in trouble. So up to 575, and that's part of my scope of work. We're allowed to do that, but if they don't give you the information, I don't wanna guess. I can't use.
I had one, this was the log cabins. The appraiser called the listing agent for an
You have something
extensive.
against appraisers, don't you?
You're on my good list. Anyway,
Santa Claus.
he calls the listing agent for one that I felt was a comp. And he quotes the listing agent says, this home is too high priced. It's not under, it hasn't sold, and I thought, wow, that's written in the appraisal.
So careful what you say.
Well, sometimes I'll make reference of, something, I'll say that it wasn't accurately priced. That's my opinion, because you look at some of these, that it was worth more, or same thing, it was, not, whatever, you use some terminology, but, yes.
I have a question for you and the lender. I used to always like to keep my contracts clean, not add a lot of stuff in it. I know you get copies of contracts. And nowadays, everybody's adding in the provisions, waiving appraisals, won't ask about sheetrock in the garage. I mean, there's so many different things. Is it fine to add now in the contract, or should we still keep it clean?
Well, people will put in their contract the furniture, yard, patio furniture, tractor, it's personal property.
Yeah.
If the contract is based on these people getting that extra stuff, then we have to extrapolate that, what's this furniture worth, what's this tractor worth? I wish they didn't put it, I know
But
they
as a
have to.
lender, we actually have to pull that out. We'll come back with it and say you need an addendum, taking out the
Right, separate
property.
rider.
Because we're appraising the house, we don't wanna know about the tractor.
No, right, it's all
the
personal
rowboat,
property.
anything like that.
So,
But how do you pull it out?
but what I'm talking
It just
about.
can't be written maybe a separate
say
addendum.
addendum.
Yeah, but what about when people say in the provisions waiving appraisal? Or mentioning something about a home inspection issue?
They can't waive the appraisal.
It's
I
appraisal
mean,
gap.
Well,
Well,
they can waive it,
I
we're still
understand.
gonna appraise it as the lender, unless we get an appraisal waiver through the desktop underwriting system.
I had the chief reviewer
So-
from a large bank say he was laughing, because I've known him for years. I was calling about something, and he said, you see these people putting these things on these contracts now, waiving the appraisal? He said, there's not such thing as waiving
So
the.
Mike, it's
You know,
not
that-
that
Well,
they're
they're
waiving
waiving
it,
it.
it's
They're-
that they're still paying the same price.
Yeah, they can't come back and negotiate.
Well, they're waiving the results,
Yes.
Correct.
They're
Waiving
waiving
the
results.
results.
right,
Yes.
but that doesn't, the bank doesn't, that,
So, but are you guys okay with that verbiage in the contract?
Actually,
I mean,
I-
obvious,
if I
I
see it,
guess
I'm
you
like,
are,
this is
it's
good.
happening.
Well, 'cause
If I-
to your
if-
point.
No, but really,
That
if I
sounds
see
like-
that in there, I'm like, this is good.
Sounds
What
like
are
more
you
of a
gonna
question for
complain?
us, the lender,
But I
Tammy.
don't understand,
I understand your question.
Yeah.
I don't wanna see that there's,
You don't wanna see
something's
it.
being negotiated about a repair item already right in the contract.
Right,
So if you can work it out, so you can just get, all we wanna know is what the price of the house is. How you got to that price, you negotiated a repair item, something for this, they're leaving the tractor in the garage. We don't wanna see that in the contract,
okay.
right? So for two reasons, the tractor in the garage is not considered real property, that's personal property. So it shouldn't be in the report, it shouldn't be on the contract. It should be handled through attorney review and through addendums in attorney review. Otherwise, we're gonna start muddying the waters to your point.
So if you put it in the contract, see attached addendum, that will have to be part of the contract.
That would also
So
have
it's
to-
gotta be separately
Like
done
I'll
in
do a
attorney
cover
review.
letter sometimes
Yes, you-
with
you-
my offer, and I'll have my client sign the cover letter, so it doesn't say, that it's in the provisions.
Yeah, so if you can figure out a way to get it from offer to attorney review comfortably, I don't know what the legal piece is, I know what I would wanna see and what I don't wanna see. I don't wanna see that stuff if it doesn't need to be in there, cause it could cause a red flag.
Right.
You know, if it's, I don't know what the item, if it's something the appraiser may not pick up, and we talked about peeling paint, for instance. That's a sore spot in some areas, like, if the entire house is peeling, like, you'd think that that's gonna be an issue. Like, if we're just talking about, from a safety standpoint, peeling paint inside a house that's built in, after 1976 or whatever you're saying, 78, it shouldn't be an issue, but, if the entire house has paint peeling off of it and the wood's exposed, now you've got, concerns about structural integrity of a home or potential for harm from water exposure, et cetera. So if it's like that bad, it's gonna be noticeable anyway. An appraiser won't be able to avoid that piece, but, leave the little stuff out if you can. I can't say I've had a deal fall apart where something like that was in there, we still remedied it, but became, nightmare seems like an extreme, but, it's a problem that we don't need to inherit, so.
Can I add my 2 cents? I kinda wish that the appraisers never got the contracts.
Yeah,
And I kinda wish I didn't know the price.
right.
Yeah.
Mhm.
It
Because
comes
I-
out exactly what.
I have to believe that, let's put this, there's already bias. You see that contract price, and you're working around it, up above, it's, how many deals have closed, and you're like, how did that house sell for that much money?
I agree. I say it every day. I know,
Oh,
Linda, you
we
had a
all say
question.
I really, I wish that, in my perfect world, before they even made an agreement, home inspector came in, make sure there's no issues, appraisal's done, then they come up with a price based on where these numbers are, because people are gonna get hurt. This market's gonna kill a lot of people.
It's already started.
I mean, I'm doing appraisals now that I look at the last sale price, 2005, 2006. They're just getting the price now that they did back then.
Yep.
So we're gonna be in the same boat 10, 15 years moving forward. History always has a way of repeating itself.
Surpassing those numbers.
And surpassing, but the other thing is that Jen and I have spoken about this. I do drive-bys. I work for this mortgage, it's a servicing portfolio company. And I don't know who the lenders are, but they just handle it's non-performing assets. So these people are living in their homes, they're not paying the mortgages, they're maintaining the house, maybe they're paying taxes, I don't know. $500,000, $1 million, beautiful properties. Out of 100%, I'd say 99% are well-maintained homes. I'm going back to the same property every 6 months, updating it with a drive-by to tell the lender this is what the home is worth. Now we've been seeing some appreciation, but these are people who bought in that period, and they're still not, I guess,
Whole. Yeah.
They're behind, and what's gonna happen now? It's gonna be the same thing. Because you know that the interest rates are gonna go up, there's gonna be more inventory, and these prices are just gonna come back down, whether it's fast or slow. And these people that are doing this now are gonna be in the same position. If they waive the home inspection, which is a foolish thing to do, or if they waive the appraisal. I mean, I don't know why someone wants to spend more than a home is worth, but that's my opinion.
They want that.
For
a house.
Yeah, at least a lot of them are putting 20%.
They're not, some people are not. I see people putting down 1%, I don't know what, 2-3%, nothing, not even FHA, a
It's unconventional.
little bit of down, no money down, and if the roof goes or furnace blows up, what do you have electric?
Mike,
Yes.
what do you do in a situation if you have a home, and I'll get specific, I have a listing, that's a 3-bedroom, 2 full bath, expanded ranch, about 2,400 square feet. But it's on about 10 acres, it has a very large indoor arena, a 7-stall barn, and it's a difficult property to comp because there's not a lot like it out there. So you go to another town, and even if you can't really find like to like, which I know is the ideal situation, how much value do you give? Because the house is okay, it has some updates, but again, the value and the price point on this property has, you know, reflected the barn, the arena, the grounds, and so on, so how do you really?
I would say,
make
first of all,
adjustments?
don't call me for any of this. No, is it in Warren County?
Warren, Sussex.
Sussex. Well, what you can do is, I think last time I was here, we were talking about going outside of your town. In some instances, you have to go outside the town you're in. And I try to stay, and you know, because where you are, I try to stay in the same school district, high school sending district. Some of those towns in Sussex have 4 or 5 towns that are part of the same school. So you're safe to stay in the same school district. Then you have to try to find, you might have to break it up, like something with land, something with the equestrian
And
buildings.
you got a very good offer on the table, and, you know, me as a listing agent, like you said, I wanna find comps, I wanna make sure we can get this comp, but it's like, okay, where am I going? You know, am I going now to another town, am I
Well,
going, you know,
I can't
find-
speak for the lender, but I'm sure, I mean, like lands, we call it surplus land. It doesn't have a lot of value, it's, you know, it's $3,000 an acre, 5,000, depending on where you are. If you're in a high
I mean, it has
market
a
area, it's a little more
relatively-
valuable, but it's surplus, you can't use it for anything.
This has a, you know, big indoor arena, and the barn's been up to, you know, it's like, okay, how much value does that have, like, really?
Problem is,
adding to it?
years ago, there were a lot of these gentlemen's farm, I guess they call them gentlemen's farms. They used to sell, there was always that, there's not much action with those anymore.
No.
Or they've been developed. Rarely, you may have to go back and do time, you might have to go back
Yeah.
2 years and then look at what the prices were, the
Then.
market price overall then to now, and make a time adjustment moving forward.
Okay.
This house would have sold for this back then, today, just using the same analysis, it's gonna sell for this. I mean, it's not a perfect, you know, this whole thing is not perfect, I mean, people say to me, how do you come up with this? Sometimes I wish somebody could just, there's no book, there's no.
Is there ever any consideration to the condition as far as, I know we're going square footage is always probably one of the most important things, but if it's really, really, really well kept, where you know these people took such fabulous care of this house, you're gonna walk in there and this is perfect. Or the opposite way, it's an absolute zoo in there, I have one right now. So, their floors are gonna have to get ripped out, you know, so is that considered at all in?
Sure.
Okay, alright.
Condition.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, location, condition, those are the big things.
Mm-hmm.
So you have something that's a mess and something that's beautiful, and they're
You have
both
to,
4
you can't,
bedroom
they're not,
colonials.
actually, they're not comparable.
They're not, so you have
No.
to compare condition now.
Gotta be, sure,
Okay.
you have to
Okay.
compare something that's similar.
Okay,
Remember, if I as an appraiser, I know I'm doing one this afternoon, they've already warned me. Already in my research, I'm looking for homes where I go on the MLS and there's one picture.
yeah, that's a big one.
Yeah, you know, that's trouble.
They're not
That's gonna be one of
bragging.
those low condition
They're not
ones?
showing this house
Yeah.
off, you know, 1 picture, 2 pictures. This is gonna be a nightmare.
Or they just show you the land.
Well, the land,
Show you
yeah.
anything inside.
Yeah.
So you have to use something that's similar.
They'll just put that up.
Because remember, we only take 10% adjustments. And if we're in that $500,000 range on adjustment, if something is, did I give you that form last time? Where it showed the, C1, C2, I think we did.
I think he did.
It's the quality, there's
Not a clue
quality
where
and
it is.
condition.
Yes, I'll grab it
There's,
again.
the C1 is brand new,
Okay.
C2 is something that's, using the existing foundation but was rebuilt.
Right.
C3 is a home that's well maintained, all systems were updated within the last 15 years. C4 is an average home that's been maintained. I rarely see a C5, that's a home that's in really disrepair. Lenders won't even lend on C5. So in your instance, the one you're looking at is probably a C4, and if you're comparing it to a C3, remember, the appraisers can only make 10% adjustments on condition. I mean, there's other adjustments we can make, appeal, you can make an appeal adjustment, because when you pull up on the curb, you look at this house, it's in disrepair on the outside, you can make a curb appeal adjustment. But 10% is usually where we draw the line as far as adjustments. And the lenders won't accept anything more than that.
Is it just for condition or generally the 10%?
No, it's, on the overall appraisal, it's 25 gross, 15% net adjustments. If somebody's giving you, like, on an appraisal, if I'm using a property and there's a ton of adjustments, it's not really a comparable property. Because comparable means the same. If I'm adjusting everything, location, site, condition, bathrooms, it's not a
That's
comp.
a hatchet job.
And but that's, I'll tell you, it's the hardest, I don't care, the hardest thing is really coming up with comps and analyzing. Took me years, I'm not gonna lie, it takes a long time. Today I still look at things and I'm like, I look at them twice sometimes, I'll do it, I'll let it sit, the next morning I'll go back at it again, I'll look at it and I'll throw a comp, I might have 8 comps when I go out. But they're not, I might take pictures of 8 homes.
Right.
But they're not all comparable.
Then you do process of
Right,
elimination.
right. So once I start narrowing down, then I look at what has the least amount of adjustments, that's my best comp. So, the same thing would be on a CMA. If it's the least amount of adjustments, it's same location, same size, same condition, that's your best comp.
Yeah.
That's the market. Yes, sir.
Me?
Yes.
I'm currently working on a transaction that has what the lender has assigned a bad appraisal. The appraisal came in at about 25% adjusted for condition only. It was of the house was being sold for 500, and they made it, the appraisal was 400. On condition alone, we have 3 comps that are all in the same area. It's a 2-family. Now, what do you have for recourse as far as, is there another option besides ordering another appraisal, or is there, like, you know?
Complain a lot.
Relatively new agent, by the way.
No, that's okay, that's a good point. I mean, I have people sometimes call me, I don't like to get in the middle of it, because I'm gonna be doing this on, 27, whatever it is, years. And I'm sure that agents have called on mine, you know, I know that, I mean, it's just, no one's perfect.
Yeah.
If you know something's blatantly wrong, I think you have every right to come back and say, this is wrong because, you know, and prove to them that this is wrong, go right back to the lender.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with that, I mean, you know.
Yeah, the lender's in agreement.
Cause what happens is, like, there's a form, you guys have, the mortgage company, it's a rebuttal form. It's an appraisal, appeal of value, or appeal of judge, whatever the term is, and you state why you think something's wrong. Now, I'm not gonna say you're gonna get too far beyond that, cause the appraiser already has the number and he thinks it's worth this much. I don't know how much you're gonna change his or her mind.
Right.
But if you have facts that were omitted, I think it's important to at least let them be heard.
This is one of the first full appraisals that I've seen as an agent. So, I mean, for the first hour of staring at it, I didn't really know what I was looking at. And then I kind of teased the numbers apart, and it was unsubstantiated and almost, you know, it just pulled a number out of nothing and applied it to the appraisal at the end. It was like everything else matched up, and then it was like minus 100,000.
Well, that's why I said that, like, the bracketing, the bracketing. You know, you're never gonna find an exact, not in this market. You might in some developments, they're all by levels and they're all the same size. But if you have 2 homes that are better and one that's inferior, the price comes in between, and that can be supported. The value has to be supported, and that's, you know, that's our job. So.
Back to the 2, oh, I'm so sorry, go
I
ahead.
can weigh in on Dave. Dave, so the lender already agreed it's a bad appraisal?
Yeah, the lender is, I'm waiting for, like, literally right now, waiting for a new appraiser to call me.
Alright, so that really would be the recourse, you argue until it's deemed a bad
Yeah.
appraisal, and then the lender typically,
So, yeah, you
as
don't
we've
have-
done, will,
As an agent, I only have to take it up with the lender, that's,
yeah, correct.
Okay.
Because you want a new appraisal now at this point, there's no point in fighting with that original appraiser, and the lender should be paying for that second appraisal. So it's not even, the cost of the consumer,
And
that's how
remember,
we would.
most appraisers are not gonna speak with the agents when they call, because we're not allowed by law. And we can discuss if somebody had a question about something. I don't even like to get involved in those conversations, because one thing leads to another, I just would rather say I can't discuss it, you've gotta make all your communication through the lender, and I'll address it with them.
Yes.
It's safe that way.
Mike,
Yes.
sorry, I don't mean to monopolize this, but I know there's these questions that I've gotten, and certainly I have a bird's eye view because I know the properties that aren't appraising that are in the, system that we're working on right now. 2 colonials, same condition, same neighborhood, finished basement, unfinished basement. What's the difference?
Good question.
Well, let me ask you, what the condition of the basement, is it a really nice finished basement?
Very nice, it's a game room. Foosball down there, they just had some
Walk out?
fun. Let's say no. I don't know, this is just hypothetical.
And what is this, neighborhood, what's the value on this?
Let's pretend, it's just not anything specific, but let's say it's $550,000 was what we thought it was going to sell.
I'm going to that house
Alright.
today.
If you're asking me what I would adjust, it's probably about $20,000, and that
Okay.
would be like the most.
So that's kind of,
Because you're not gonna, when you start getting crazy, like 10% of the value is the basement,
yeah.
lender kinda looks at it like, I don't know, that's $50,000 on a $500,000 home, I don't think so. You could have marble floors in there, but
Right.
it's not
I
gonna
agree.
change anything.
Okay, good. Surplus land that you were speaking of. So let's say you have a property on 15 acres. Does zoning in the town make a difference? So it's 5-acre zoning. Are we talking about, and I've always figured, especially now, $2,500 to $3,000 per extra acre.
Surplus.
Is it after the 5 or strictly the building envelope and then you add in the surplus land?
I just base it on when I'm comparing lots to lots.
I see,
If I
okay.
got a 10-acre lot and a 5-acre lot, it's 5 acres at $3,000.
Okay. Good, thank you.
And I got some sheet I could give you, somebody.
That'd be great, that'd be great. if
I did
could-
an appraisal down in, Tewksbury, I think it was, and it was an equestrian type thing, and, this realtor, she had a really pretty good, some appraiser did it for her, I don't forget who it was, and I put it up on my board in my office. It's pretty much some of these things about the land and
Mhm.
what they get for the riding rings and the barns. It's pretty good, I'll shoot
That'd
it
be
over to you.
great, and I'll get it out to everybody.
Yeah,
you need that.
just scratch out the person's name who put it on there, cause it didn't come to me firsthand, I just got it
Okay.
secondhand, I don't wanna
Happy
be.
to.
Anything else?
Mike, as far as style, so if you say square footage is really, a good, parameter to use, then you've got like a bi-level, that's no basement, then you've got a split that might have just a basement
Partial
under one
basement.
room, and then a colonial on a slab. You all basically have the same square footage, but you've got 3 distinct styles that are in the same neighborhood, and you're having trouble finding comps for like let's say bi-level. Can you use all?
If you have no other homes, you remember, we can't make up sales. I mean, they are what they are, we
Do you
have
adjust it
to.
all for the style? If there-
If you can extract from the market, see, to me, a colonial on a slab is not really colonial, I'm sorry.
Right, I mean,
It's
that's
just
what,
not.
but,
It might have a colonial design, but it's not a colonial,
Slide, Fuller Hill?
I would say, I wouldn't.
okay, so they're all pretty similar.
Because they're on a slab, they're
Right.
all pretty much, they have similar functional utility,
Right,
no basement,
okay.
same appeal, maybe the colonial a little more, but,
Are you more interested in square footage then, in that case?
well, you always, the biggest thing is location. And number one is location and, the style, the condition, the number of bathrooms,
Right, but I mean in comparison.
and that, well, you would, they're
There's
probably
some
gonna be about the same.
neighborhoods, like up in Paula, Clover Hill, there's some neighborhoods that have that combination. of
Oh,
homes.
yeah, you're gonna, you wanna try to find the same identical style if you
Right,
can.
if you can,
But we can't always,
right, and
that's.
for the banks then, would you prefer a 9-month-old all bi-levels, or would you prefer a 3-month back with the 3 varying styles? What would be your preference for an appraisal?
Also a tough one. We
You
wanna
be on the
start with.
spot this time.
Yeah.
Yeah, we wanna start.
Take me off the hook.
We wanna start with, comparable properties, so we wanna start with.
So even if one is 9 months back and one, that would be better than having newer comps
Well,
in
better-
different styles.
Better is a relative term, that would be the more desired comp. you know, if it's a bi-level to bi-level, that's where you wanna start.
What you might wanna do is, we talked about the time adjustments, does everybody, you guys know, understand what the time adjustment is, right? You know, we could do it both negative and positive.
So do that, keep it to the style and do the time.
And if you can prove out that that home today would sell for X, Y, Z, because the market went up 5%, you can put a time adjustment from the date of contract, and that kind of supports your current market, value.
Room count,
Yes,
shotgun.
Yeah.
Obligated room, we used to call it, the shotgun. You have to walk through a room, a bedroom, let's say here is a
Right.
hallway,
right,
to get to a bedroom.
right.
They're both included in a room count?
They're included in the room count, but they're not bedrooms.
Right. So once,
Usually the one, the furthest.
the furthest
one
is this, okay, that's what it
That's
does.
pretty much the older homes, you see a
Right.
lot of, you see a lot of that on Phillipsburg.
Yeah.
Yeah, you have a $200,000 house with a sitting room.
There's some people that I've done some homes with master closets bigger than my bedroom.
Yeah, exactly.
Yes,
How about garages attached versus garages tucked under the house?
no, I don't, I mean,
Just count them as garages regardless?
two-car garage, two-car garage. I mean, what happens in, like what I do, like, I see a lot of this up in Bergen, when they're building these new homes, they'll do tear downs like in Teaneck, I do a lot of work in Teaneck, Tenafly. There is, I have to back up, there is a little bit of a market difference between a garage, let's say you got a two-story colonial, brand new foundation, but the topography of the garage is going down under. Sometimes they have elevators, a lot of these $1 million homes, they have elevators down there to bring the groceries up. Sometimes they don't. To me, it's more desirable to have that garage at ground level,
Sure.
where you walk up 2 steps. So sometimes you can see that these are pretty similar homes. This one is selling for this price, why? And in my mind, it's because that people don't wanna hump
Yeah.
And the
up to
basement's smaller.
Right, and the basement's smaller, right, so,
Water, they probably worry about
And water's another issue.
in water we get in, yeah, if it's not true, if it's not, set up right. Anybody else? That was pretty easy.
Mike, you mentioned time adjustment, I don't see a lot of appraisers using that, but I think it should be used. The alternative would be, so, I do a lot of appeal, not a lot, but I work on the appeal work, you know, the rebuttals. So one thing that I
You're
don't.
the guy who writes them,
What's that?
you're the guy who
You're the
writes
guy.
them.
Yeah.
He's very helpful.
Correct, thanks. Market condition. So one of the things, if I'll see something, there's no time adjustment, then the appraisers also, every appraisal I've reviewed says the market's stable. And without a time adjustment,
That's not true.
it seems like it's not true. So like, if you had a time adjustment, I could justify leaving the market condition alone, as long as you've got a time adjustment, but I'm not seeing either of those things. What's your opinion on using, saying the market's increasing?
I'll be very, this is, what I do is, I'll take a look at that last 6-12 months out to now, and it's very clear that the market went up 10%.
Yeah.
But when you drill into that neighborhood or that price point, there is no market increase, because if you do the MC analysis, the MC form, you've seen the MC form on the Garden State, or in an appraisal. It's called the MC analysis.
I don't know that I'm
All right,
familiar with that.
it's called the MC form, it's a market conditions form. And years ago, they put this in and all the appraisers, you would have thought they asked us to give our next born, child, all this extra work. It takes 2 minutes, and it's really a helpful tool, because it just supports the fact that, yes, the market went up 10%. But these bi-levels in this Clover Hill neighborhood, for instance, they didn't go up 10%, they went up 5%. So my market adjustment is based on the bi-level, that market themselves. That's where I make my time adjustments. Yes, the overall market did go up, yeah, the median prices went from this to this. Hey, everybody's happy, there's shortage of inventory. That doesn't mean that every price point went up, because you see it on the high-end homes, they don't go up at the same percentage as the lower entry-level homes. Entry-level homes are killing it, but the $1 million+ homes, they're not going at that same. They might even be coming down in some markets, because they lost the tax benefit. There's a surplus of homes on the inventory, people are leaving the state. So, you can't use, it's not one size fits all. You have to look at each one individually.
Okay.
I mean, did I answer?
Yeah, you did. I guess my point also is if you reviewing an appraisal and there's no time adjustment, that's the one thing Mike does that most appraisals I review, they don't consider either of those. So just wanna know, the fact that you're using the time adjustment is important.
I have to, I mean,
Yeah.
I don't think we're doing a job right if we weren't making time adjustments based on current market conditions. Sometimes it's not warranted, you know, I won't do it, you know, because I can't support it when I do that MC.
Mhm.
The statistics are a big thing, I use them, I throw them in there just because I don't want someone to come back. The underwriters will come back, the reviewers will say, wait a minute, you said on the first page that the market's gone up. Yes, but if you read the appraisal and look at the addendum I put in there, there's no increase in that price point.
Right.
So I'm not taking the time adjustment, so.
It's gonna be interesting to see what's gonna happen in the next 3 to 6 months. Very
And
interesting.
3 to 6 years.
It's really, I told you about these drive-bys, and the scary thing is I'm doing, every day they send me a new property. And I can accept what I can take, and I just, for me, it's like extra work. I'm going somewhere, I could do this when I'm out that way. But it's scary that these people are still in these homes, it's not hitting the market yet. When it hits the market, there's gonna be a surplus of properties, and the surplus is gonna bring the right.
It's gonna be short.
But I'm not, I
These
can't,
guys are gonna be short.
you know, I don't know when that, I guess once COVID's finally clear, there's a moratorium, I think, on doing something with people, which is good. And again, once it clears, I guess they'll be going after these people. I don't know. It takes years to get rid of people.
Yeah.
So. Anything else?
Thank you, Mike. That was
I have,
excellent.
I left my cards there, but I also left 2 other cards. This is my son-in-law. I'm not gonna take any money today, but Matthew Manzi, and some of you might know his mom, Cindy. She's an agent in Remax in your office, right?
Yeah, she's great. So she would've been here.
This is my son-in-law. He's a dentist. He's in Washington. He's about maybe a mile past the intersection of Route 31 and 57, across from Enzo's. He's been in his practice now a year. So he's the father to my 2 grandsons. So we need a college center, but he's a very good dentist. I went to the same dentist for 35 years, and we switched, my wife and I, and he's great. He's very good.
Does he give you a discount?
If I get, I think right now I'm ahead of the game. You know, as far as money that might be owed, you know, between the wedding and the bridal shower and gifts.
Those kids are so
But
fucking cute.
I guess, what's that?
The kids are so cute.
You've seen the pic?
You know, I've taken them out. I've taken them out
course, Mary.
looking for rentals. So.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You taking my daughter?
Yes.
Kristen?
Yes. Cindy and I work together. But yeah,
Oh,
the kids
okay.
they were more fun than anything else. And they were
But anybody,
great time.
if anybody's interested, you know, I used to say, I used to drive 40 miles to go see our dentist. Everybody said, why? Because that was my guy, I was
Sure.
comfortable.
No, I know.
He was down in Edison, that's when we lived in Edison. And now I'm up here, I'm not gonna. He's good. And there's another young man I met, he has a company called All Jersey Appliance. He's right in Long Valley. He's very good, repairs,
Oh, I've used
refrigerators.
that.
They're great.
He's good.
Yeah.
They also, you can see on their, when they're coming, you can track where they're at. They're like, oh, you're in Byram? Like, you
Oh,
get
that's
an
what you
app,
need.
and you're like,
Yeah,
oh,
so awesome.
okay, 15 minutes to get home.
Rare that
That's great,
something
yeah.
broke.
They're
and
really
I
good, and they're
typed it in the
honest.
same day, and it was
That's
done in like 10 minutes. And I didn't mind paying, because I know that this time is money, but we were back up and running again, so here's my cards.
Thanks, Mike.
Thank you.
Wow, what a great